Donald Trump returns to the White House with a remarkable comeback. Republicans not just swept the Sun Belt but also the battleground states. But what does Trump's return mean for India? Prime Minister Narendra Modi congratulated Donald Trump on his historic win and said he looks forward to collaborating with the soon-to-be US president. Even the Indian markets responded positively, but what will be the long-term impact? Let's try and understand this and put it into perspective before we go across to our guest. Now, the return of Donald Trump, the pros for Bharat. There's a rapport with Prime Minister Narendra Modi and perhaps possible regional reconfiguration to address Bangladesh and Pakistan will come into play. Then it may help Bharat address Khalistan extremism and also the Nikhil Gupta case, temper the moral posturing on initiatives like CAA and minority rights. There will also be the China decoupling or China plus one opportunity that could help India rise as a manufacturing power, and perhaps we are better placed than we were about 4-5 years ago. Elevation of Quad to counterbalance China. These are, and in defense and military ties, especially increased defense cooperation and tech transfers. And we know the Trump administration helped us during the Galwan standoff. And of course, the counter-terror synergy may address the demand for firmer US stance on Pakistan, and this was there that the entire FATF crackdown and perhaps the economic pressure on Pakistan began over terror activities. As far as oil and energy is concerned, more US production could ease the global oil prices, and that will further help India with our import bills and may impact India's IT, pharma, textile sectors and spark inflation because of the tariff strategy. But if we have an FTA in place, we may be able to overcome that issue. But when it comes to immigration, the restrictive H-1B policies that have impacted Indian IT officials remains an issue. And that was something that was raised under the Trump administration. Also, more capital outflow may impact emerging markets over the re-energizing of the dollar. The downgrade via increased inflation and rates staying higher. Now, this is where the rupee may lose strength. Despite the markets being buoyant, the rupee did lose out this time around. So what are the implications overall? Who is better was a question that we asked before the elections were had the numbers had stabilized. Now it is, what do we do now? What's in it for Bharat in this case? That's the question. Let's go across to our guest this evening on the show. Joining us, Sushant Sareen is with us at this point. We also have Tim Romer, former American ambassador to Bharat, and also Congressman Purnima Nath, geopolitical observer, and former US Congress candidate Cynthia Farhat. And Sushant Sareen is with us, senior fellow, ORF. And namaste to everybody. Let me start with Mr. Romer. How would you see the turn of events in the US? And when it comes to the Indo-US equations, what would be Donald Trump's move? What will be his expectations?
Yes, good evening. Nice to be with you and your viewers once again. First of all, to Donald Trump's resounding victory, it appears that it's surprising but not stunning. When you look at the number of elections around the world and the populism that keeps on coming into democracies, we've seen populism growing in the United States from about 2002, 2003 forward. People's dislocation, their anger at government, their concern about good, high-paying jobs and the economy. This is not a stunning victory. It's the first time in American history since Grover Cleveland that we've had a president get non-consecutive terms. He's run 3 times in a row now. And he is spot on his messages on the economy, on immigration, border security, and trying to make sure there's not a World War III. So it's a simple, straightforward message. And the Democrats had a lot of high headwinds. An unpopular Biden presidency, 74% of the American people were not feeling like the country was going in the right direction. And registration of Republicans was up in the last 4 years by about 2.5% to 3%. So again, this is something that Donald Trump pulled off, and congratulations to him. For U.S.-India relations, what does it mean? I think it'll continue to mean deepening in the strategic relationship and the Quad and defense and intel sharing and security and homeland security arrangements. Those will all go forward. There'll be new innovations in those areas to try to have the two countries work together. The challenges will probably be substantial. Donald Trump said that his favorite word in the dictionary is tariff. And there's no question he wants to double tariffs from 10% to 20%. He wants to increase them to up to 50 to 60% on China. Does that automatically mean it's a good thing for India? No. Donald Trump wants to move those supply chains from China and other places back home and homeshore those to America. Some of those might go to Mexico, but that does not mean that India automatically will benefit from economic policies of Trump. H-1B visas. I think Trump is going to make the H-1B visa a little bit more difficult and slower and tougher for India. And I mentioned the supply chain.
Yes.
Those supply chains, which are crucial to India's growth and their GDP and their jobs for young people coming forward. Don't count on Donald Trump to say they're going to go to Vietnam and ASEAN countries and India. They're going to be driven back home to the United States for the most part under his administration.
But how many of those supply chains will
strategically in the relationship and some challenges coming forward?
But Ambassador Romer, the fact is that not all those supply chains can be brought back to America. America does not have the capacity or the bandwidth, and it will need the expertise and it will need a certain level of manufacturing help. Sushant Sareen, can Bharat's position, as Cynthia Farahat, author, also joins us. I'm just going to... Can our position be, should our position be, how can you help us? Or should our position be, how can we help you? Because that's how then the equation works in everybody's favor.
Thank you so much for having me. I think that President Donald Trump's presidency is great news for India. President Trump is a true friend of India, and specifically when it comes to your national security. And this is something that the symbiotic relationship, peace in India, peace in Pakistan and peace in Afghanistan is in the benefit of not only India and America, but the whole entire world. We have seen what the past administration had done with the Afghan evacuation, which directly led to October 7th. Now, things have, I'm sure that a lot of bad actors are not going to sleep well tonight after this news. And when President Trump was in office, terrorists thought a million times before firing a bullet. And that is why he was the president of peace. There was the Abraham Accords between Arab countries and Israel. There was peace in Sinai. There was peace in southern Lebanon. And now all of this chaos is going to gradually start to halt. And that is not only in both countries' national security's best interest, but for literally world peace.
Sushant Sareen.
So, Anand, the way I look at it is, to an extent, Trump is going to be very transactional, and I don't see any problem in it. Yeah, there will be some headwinds coming our way, but I don't think those are of the kind that's going to disrupt the relationship. Incidentally, I think it's important also to remember that India and the US relationship is not a single point relationship. It's not just a security relationship of the kind that the Americans had, for example, with Pakistan or their involvement in Afghanistan and many other countries. It's a much deeper relationship, right? So in a sense that yes, there will be security cooperation, but I don't see a very great amount of disruption in the kind of economic relationship that we have with the Americans. Look, again, you have to understand, we're talking about a modern economy. Yes, the American administration will try how much facilitation we do for attracting business and supply chains to come and set up shop in India. So that is one part of it. The other part of it is on the visa thing. Look, again, I'm not very worried about it simply because, I think it makes a lot of sense to crack down on illegal immigration. Much of the immigration from India or migration from India to the US is of very technically qualified people. So maybe the H-1B visas go down, but maybe, if you require people with skills in the United States who are going to productively contribute to the US economy, I don't see why Trump is going to be bloody minded about. I think he's the kind of a guy who will look for good options if he's going to get them. He's already announced that. Even in his victory speech, he said
Correct.
that all for people coming into America, but not illegally. So as you know, if you're one of those Khalistani thugs who goes by the illegal route, yeah, you have something to be worried about. But if you're a qualified guy who's going, the legal route, or you're going as a student, and then you're going to be working in the US, I don't see how that's a problem for India as such.
True.
And then, of course, there is the whole issue of the chemistry, both between the leaders and the fact that, if you have some of Trump's big supporters who are well disposed towards India coming into government, I think that will augur well for the bilateral relationship. So I'm not very worried about how the relationship is going to proceed. There will be the irritants, there will be a lot of other, pushbacks. But I think at the end of the day, the one thing which I think will do well between India and the US is that if the moralizing, the sermonizing, and the kind of hypocrisy that we've seen from the liberals in the United States, if that comes to an end, it clears up a lot of bad blood between India and the US.
Well, a lot of times the argument would be that
Talk down to anymore.
Yeah.
You don't need lectures on democracy from anybody.
no, it's the different governments and different administrations have different policies of how to shake hands while trying to push you and shove you to a corner and keep you there. So because different nations approach diplomacy and this differently, and different administrations would do the same. Purnima Naji, where do you stand? Thank you for your patience. Your thoughts. Is this good for the Indo-American grouping? Is it good for Indo-US relationship? What will be Trump's outlook?
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate that. President Trump, I don't call him president-elect. He was actually the rightful winner in 2020 as well. So President Trump is good for America as well as for the world. When it comes down to Indo-US relationship, I don't think there is any better person. He is the first politician I have seen in America as well as in India, in American landscape, from the both side of the aisle, left and right, to have the guts and the courage to stand for the Hindu population. And he particularly said that he's going to actually protect Hindus globally. And that was a Diwali tweet that he has done a few days ago. And he also specifically said that Kamala Harris as well as Democrat Party left the Hindus, and he's not going to do that. Now, coming back to the point that Mr. Rumor had made about there's going to be tightening of H-1B visa, I disagree with that, because there are two things that has happened. In his first term, he actually was the toughest one on the visas for Indian Americans. At the same time, in the last 4 years, what has happened is Democrats and the Biden-Harris administration had opened borders and brought in 12 to 14 million illegal aliens in this country. And today we are in a situation that we cannot even call them illegal aliens. We are supposed to call them undocumented, so-called. Unfortunately, they have promised them fast-tracked citizenship as well. Just a week ago, I have asked a question to two people, my senator Ron Johnson, and one of the congressperson, Brian Steele. The question was, what would we do with these illegal aliens that America has brought in right now? How are you going to address them? Senator Ron Johnson responded to that particular question is very clearly. He said that, listen, there is not going to be a mass deportation. If the illegal alien have committed some crimes, we will probably do something drastic for that particular person. Now, if you heard Donald Trump, he basically, blanketly says that there will be mass deportation. There will be not just the criminal ones, but illegally, if you entered into this country, there will be repercussion. This is not what I heard from even Senator Ron Johnson, who's
Right.
From the right-wing Republican Party, my party. So the reason I say that, so there seemed to be some conversation going on and discussion going on within the party also, and try to figure out as to how to address this, because he specifically said that these illegal aliens were welcomed into the country, so we cannot just deport them. We have to do something for these illegal aliens. So keeping that in mind, now Donald Trump is not going to be super strict on
Right.
H1B. People like us who came to this country as a high skilled labor, when we come to this country and build product and services for the American company, we are not actually building Indian product, we're building product for America. So I think Donald Trump at this point of time clearly understands that differentiation. So he actually, I think, will bring in more high skilled laborers, workers and talents from India to America, and that's
Perhaps
pretty
those
clear
sectors will be
what he-
perhaps those sectors will be limited. There will be a relook and a rethink, and he's coming into office for the second time, so there will be some lessons that he and his team would have already learned. What do you make, Ambassador Rumer, of the construct of the administration, the next administration under Donald Trump? Do you believe that there will be a lot of mixed representation, non-white, if I may say, non-actually of first, second generation Americans, Hispanics, Asians, Indian or Indo-Americans? Do you believe there will be a lot of representation? How will he then be able to take calls when it comes to the hard Christian line, the Christian evangelical line that he will have to take for his core constituency?
Yes. Well, I just want to say, first of all, that the five of us here on this show are going to have differences of opinions,
Yes.
respectfully so, on foreign policy and the challenges coming up in a Trump administration and where the opposition will come from. But on the facts, we shouldn't disagree. And the 2020 election was a fair election. Republicans across the country have agreed that Biden won that election. So people saying that the 2020 election was disputed or unfair is just factually not true. Now, to your question about what does a Trump cabinet look like, I think, the big question for him is going to be, how much did he learn in his first term? How quickly does he get moving into the second term with appointments? The Senate looks like it's going to probably be Republican controlled by 53 to 55 or 56 votes. So he's going to be able to confirm almost all of his nominees. That resounding Senate victory in places like Ohio, in Montana, in West Virginia, that was also flipped, that gives the Republicans a lot more maneuvering as to who President Trump can bring into the next administration. Do those people look like a Marco Rubio as Secretary of State, an Elon Musk at Commerce, a Robert Kennedy Jr. at healthcare? Who are the kind of people that he brings in? And the second big question is, does President Trump have a mandate, a honeymoon, or does he overreach and create problems for his party in 2026, going into the end of his term? So that's going to be a big question. What does he line up, and what are his priorities? If it is things like immigration reform, which Democrats will work with him on, we want fair border security. We want to secure that southern border. We don't want terrorists coming across that border. We want legal immigration to take place so that those hardworking people from India and China that add to growing our economy get into this country legally, but criminals coming across the border from South America or other places don't get into this country. That's something Democrats want to work on in a bipartisan way. Will Trump line up bills like, will he embrace Biden's infrastructure bill and investment in chips and batteries factories in the United States? in this supply chain argument that he's going to make and in bringing jobs back home, he's going to see some of the Biden accomplishments as ways that he can get credit for creating more jobs in America and redirecting some of those supply chains back home. When does he do tax cuts? He promised no taxes on tips in Nevada. Will he put that forward in the first 2 years? It's going to be very interesting to see his sequencing of the agenda, and if he tries to work in a bipartisan way initially with Democrats on things like some foreign policy and immigration reform.
But Ambassador Rumer, there have been issues of intervention in South Asia, in this region, under the Biden administration. Bangladesh is a case in point. What has happened there? There is a certain level of tension, even of frostiness, even with this entire Khalistan issue. How the Canadians have now openly cited, and Justin Trudeau himself said that the intel was provided by the Americans, and there is a soft peddling of this entire issue. Gurpatwant Panun, a wanted man in our country who's pushing a secessionist agenda against India, is a US national, and he's getting a lot of protection with the state agencies present there. So these are all issues of contention. Do you believe that Donald Trump will have a different approach towards resolving these issues? And the entire pressure on Pakistan to ease on terror in the region, especially that's being fomented on Indian soil, all of that, the FATF action started under the Trump administration between 2016 and 2020. It seems to have become a little easy under the Biden administration. So will there be an impact on all of that?
Well, look, I moved to India to be ambassador in New Delhi when right after the Mumbai terrorist attacks took place on India. And it was absolutely India's 9/11 as we experienced those attacks in the United States. We knew that that came from Pakistan. We worked with India and bolstering their security forces, bolstering their police activities and training, bolstering their intel sharing, to try to make sure that that not only never happened again, but we also decided that India was our strategic partner and Pakistan was a problem to be managed. And India needs to be confident about how the US now sees India as its strategic partner, its partner in democratic values and democracy, and its partner on China. Right. And its partner on security issues through the Quad and peace and prosperity. This is a new day between the United States and India. And we see ourselves as growing global partners, whether that be in a new architecture in the Middle East, with India potentially playing a role in the Middle East to help us with peacekeeping or rebuilding Gaza. And we agree with India on a two-state solution in the Middle East. We agree with India that China needs to be constrained and not be attacking countries like India on its border or the Philippines in the South China Sea. So there's a lot of similarities here. There are irritants in the relationship that Trump is going to see and that we need to manage, whether that is, India buying Russian security defense equipment or Russian oil. These things will be managed because the strategic relationship between our two countries and our two peoples are so critically important to world peace.
Two nations, two entities, if they want to work together, they'll find ways to iron out the creases. That's what you're saying, Ambassador Rumer.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you very much to all our panelists. I have to wind up the conversation.